They speak, though sometimes it feels as if their voices are everywhere and nowhere at once. A word drops into the quiet, soft at first, like a pebble falling into a pond, and then it ripples, spreading, touching parts of you did not know were exposed. You hear it and feel it, and suddenly the world seems heavier. You wonder if they know, if they ever see how their words land. Or maybe they do not notice at all. Maybe it is not meant to be seen. And in the stillness that follows, you notice the small voice inside, the one you often try to ignore. It whispers in a way that is almost too subtle to hold on to, a quiet insistence that something is not quite right, that you are more than the echo of their judgments. You may turn your attention elsewhere, try to busy your mind, try to convince yourself that the ripple will fade on its own. But it lingers, small and persistent, asking questions you do not yet have answers for. Have you felt it? That tiny restlessness, that gentle tug at your chest when everything around you demands attention, approval, or reaction. It does not shout. It does not scream. It simply reminds you that there is another rhythm, another way to be, one that moves slower, one that does not bend to the clamor outside. And in that quiet, you begin to sense something familiar, something almost forgotten. The pulse of your own thoughts, the softness of your own breath, the subtle weight of your own presence. Sometimes the world outside seems so loud, yet in that loudness there is a strange clarity. When you step back, even for a moment, you realize that much of what reaches you is not meant to touch your heart. It may stir you, it may provoke a quick movement of anger or sadness, but at its root, it is not yours. And in that understanding, a gentle question rises: what if you could simply watch, simply feel, without being pulled into the tide? The voice inside you grows, though never impatiently. It does not command, it does not push. It asks softly, can you be still enough to hear yourself? Can you be quiet enough to notice the way the world moves, and yet remain untouched by its insistence? And as you listen, you begin to feel a strange kind of courage, not the loud, visible kind, but the quiet courage of someone who knows that their own mind is a place worth guarding. You may notice the tension in your body, the small tightening at your shoulders, the quickness of your pulse, the way your thoughts scatter when a word strikes too close. And still, you breathe. And still you allow the silence to stretch a little longer, to fill the spaces that were once noisy with the echoes of others. In that pause, something soft and firm begins to grow. A gentle certainty that you can observe without being shaken, that you can feel without being consumed. And yet, it is not always easy. The world outside continues, moving, speaking, demanding. Sometimes their words strike again, sharp and sudden, cutting through the calm you have worked so hard to find. And in those moments you may stumble, you may feel the pull to respond, to defend, to make yourself understood. But even in the struggle, the quiet voice remains. It waits patiently, as if to remind you that no one else holds the power over your inner world. There is a subtle beauty in this first step, the act of noticing, of hearing without immediately answering, of allowing the quiet to settle in your chest. You realize that this space is yours, that it has always been there, hidden beneath the clamor, waiting for recognition. And as you sit with it, you may begin to understand a truth that is older than words, that silence is not absence and stillness is not weakness. They are the beginning of seeing clearly, of feeling deeply, of holding a space that no one else can take from you. So you breathe again, slowly, deliberately. You feel the small voice, patient and steady. You let it rise, let it fill the spaces between the words of others. And for a moment you are only yourself, quiet, observant, alive in a way that the world cannot disturb. And you begin to sense that this is not just a moment, but a doorway, a gentle invitation to a life that listens before it answers, that sees before it reacts, that holds a soft and steady power within. And in that silence, just for a little while, you are safe, you are enough, and the world can wait. The words return. Again, though they are no longer soft, they press against your mind in a way that feels heavier than before. You notice it, the way each syllable carries weight, as if it is meant to shape you, bend you, or pull you into a motion you do not wish to follow. And you wonder quietly, why does the world seem to measure us by the echoes we give rather than the stillness we hold inside? You feel a subtle tension in your chest, a small tightening that travels down your arms, and you realize how much energy you spend simply holding yourself upright in their presence. Each glance, each sound, each quiet judgment becomes a weight, a little stone added to the pile you carry without acknowledgement. And in the stillness of your own heart, you notice the fatigue, the quiet exhaustion that comes from keeping your mind from wandering too far into their sway. It is strange how much of life can feel like a constant balancing act. You watch the world moving around you, and it seems to expect a response, a gesture, a sign that you are present in the way they want you to be. And yet, in the quiet moments, when you allow yourself to breathe fully, you see the truth. The energy that is pulled from you is not yours to give. It is borrowed from the depth of your patience, borrowed from the calm you have nurtured, borrowed from the very stillness that keeps you grounded. Have you noticed, in the long stretches of silence, how thoughts begin to multiply? They take the weight of every word, every judgment, every demand, and they twist inside, trying to find their own place. You may feel a pull to respond, a small urgency rising like a tide within your chest. But if you sit with it, if you simply observe without rushing, you see something remarkable. The pull fades, the urgency softens, and a quiet understanding emerges that not every stone needs to be lifted, not every word needs an answer, not every demand requires your energy. The pressure of their expectations is relentless, but it is not insurmountable. You begin to notice how the body carries it, the slight stiffening of the back, the shallow rise and fall of your breath, the way your hands may clench without your awareness. And still, you breathe, slowly, deliberately. And with each breath, the tension loosens, the weight diminishes, and you realize that you have been carrying what was never yours to hold. It is in these moments, when the quiet is hardest to maintain, that you feel the most alive. Not in the loud victories, not in the visible triumphs, but in the small, invisible act of maintaining your center. You notice the rhythm of your own thoughts, the soft cadence of your breath, the subtle warmth in your chest that no word can reach. And in that recognition, a gentle shift begins. You are no longer merely reacting to the weight of others. You are witnessing it, allowing it to pass, letting it settle without claiming it as your own. Sometimes the heaviness returns, stronger than before, more insistent. They speak, they judge, they press against your boundaries, and the mind instinctively reaches for defense. And yet, when you pause, when you allow the silence to stretch just a little longer, you feel the remarkable truth. The world may try to shape you, may try to bend your spirit, may try to weigh you down, but it cannot take what you choose to keep. The calm within, the quiet steadiness, the gentle power of observation, all of it belongs to you alone. You notice how your thoughts begin to untangle one by one. The tension in your chest softens, the small tightening in your shoulders fades, and in that softening there is a sense of liberation that is quiet, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable. The weight of their words no longer dictates the rhythm of your heartbeat. The energy you once gave freely is returned to its rightful place, back into the stillness that holds you. And in the quiet after it all, you begin to see how much you have learned without even trying, how much strength has grown in the spaces between the demands, how much clarity can exist when you simply observe without reaction. And a gentle question rises, unspoken but deeply felt. What if the world's weight is not meant to shape you, but only to teach you the shape of your own spirit? You breathe again, slowly, fully, and in the rhythm of your own inhalation and exhalation you sense the quiet triumph of restraint. It is not loud, it is not visible, It does not seek praise or recognition. And ye, T, it is real, and it is yours. You sit with it, with the subtle power of your own presence, and you understand, in a way words cannot fully capture, that peace is not something the world gives. It is something you quietly choose, moment by moment, breath by breath. The silence that follows is no longer empty. It is full of observation, full of gentle awareness, full of the calm knowledge that you can withstand what comes, that you can hold your center, and that at last you are learning to carry only what is truly yours. And in that quiet, soft place, you feel the first gentle release of what you once thought unshakable, and it feels like coming home. Even in the quietest moments, there is a subtle ache that comes from not being understood. You may notice it first as a shadow across your chest, a gentle, persistent weight that does not press sharply but lingers nonetheless. They speak, or act, or expect, and their eyes do not see the full measure of what you hold inside. And you wonder softly, almost without realizing it, if anyone ever truly sees what is hidden in the spaces between your words. It is a strange kind of loneliness, one that does not arrive with shouts or absence, but with quiet misunderstanding. They interpret your calm as disinterest, your patience as weakness, your silence as consent. And for a moment you feel exposed, as if the world itself is casting a shadow over your inner life, folding your careful thoughts into shapes that are not yours. How often does the heart carry burdens it never voiced, yet they are read as something else entirely? You feel the shift in your own perception, the soft and subtle tightening that follows each misjudgment. It is not anger, not yet, not even sadness fully, but a quiet stirring of the spirit. And in that stirring you begin to notice the delicate line between the world's perception and your own truth. How easily the one can be mistaken for the other. How quietly we let the misunderstanding of others seep into the corners of our own hearts, coloring the spaces where light once rested. And still you sit, you breathe, you allow the silence to stretch longer than it has in hours, perhaps days, and in that stretching something begins to open. You feel the truth of your own inner life, the subtle strength of knowing yourself without the need for their recognition. You realize that their gaze, their opinions, their assumptions do not hold the keys to your being. And yet, the feeling of being misunderstood is still there, a soft echo like a distant wind moving through the branches of your mind. Have you noticed how often misunderstanding comes not from malice, but from distance, from a world that moves too fast to notice the gentle rhythms of your thoughts, from hearts that are full, yet cannot reach yours in their fullness? It is not your burden to fix them, nor is it their burden to understand fully, and still, you cannot help but feel the subtle tug of longing, the quiet wish that the why might see the depth, the small and careful truths that live in the spaces between what you speak and what you remain silent about. In that longing, there is a quiet teaching. You notice the ways your own heart tightens, the ways it bends toward needing recognition, needing acknowledgement, and you allow yourself to observe it without judgment. Each breath becomes a small witness to your own feelings, each pause a gentle marker of your presence within yourself, and slowly you begin to feel the subtle distinction between being seen and being known. One is fleeting, fragile, dependent on another. The other is yours, quiet, resilient, and growing in the stillness. You may feel the pull to explain, to justify, to make them understand. The temptation is gentle but persistent, like a quiet current beneath a placid lake. And yet you notice that in every attempt to clarify, the heart may grow restless, the calm may be disturbed, and the truth, which lives so naturally within you, begins to strain under the weight of needing external validation. And so you breathe again, slowly, and you allow the silence to carry what words cannot, to hold what gestures cannot reach, to sustain the quiet truth that is yours alone. And in the soft space that follows, a realization begins to form, like the first light of morning brushing the edges of a darkened room. To be misunderstood is not the same as being diminished. To be seen imperfectly does not erase the fullness of what you hold within. And in that quiet understanding there is a subtle freedom, a gentle unfolding of the heart that does not depend on recognition or approval, that does not falter when the world interprets your calm as something smaller than it is. The loneliness does not vanish completely. Perhaps it never will. But it changes shape. It becomes a quiet companion rather than a heavy weight. You sit with it, you breathe with it, you observe it with the soft patience of someone who has learned to hold their own inner life gently. And in doing so, you notice that the spaces of misunderstanding also carry the spaces of your own clarity. That between the judgments and assumptions of others lies the vast, quiet expanse of your own mind, waiting to be known fully by no one but yourself. And as the stillness deepens, you feel a subtle power take root, not the kind that is loud or visible, but the kind that cannot be shaken by misjudgment or misperception. It is the quiet assurance that your worth, your understanding, your presence rests not on the fleeting recognition of others, but on the steady heartbeat of your own being. And in that assurance, in that gentle knowing, the ache of being misunderstood softens, and you begin to feel for the first time in a long while entirely at home within yourself. In the quiet that follows, you begin to notice something shifting inside you, something subtle but unmistakable. It is not loud, it does not announce itself, but it moves like a small flame in the center of your chest, steady and warm. You realize that all this time you have been searching outside for acknowledgement, for proof that your calm and your patience matter. And yet now, in the gentle stillness, you begin to see that the truth you have been seeking has been within you all along. It comes slowly, like dawn creeping across a darkened landscape, softening edges and illuminating spaces you had overlooked. You feel the first hints of understanding, that strength does not always make itself visible, that courage is not always loud, and that power can live quietly, without fanfare, within the folds of your own heart. You remember the moments when you held yourself back from reacting, when you watched and waited, when the world pressed against you, and yet you remained still. And in recalling them, a gentle awe rises within you, not for what others see, but for what you have quietly become. Have you ever noticed how much energy is spent simply responding, simply bending to the expectations or judgments of others? And have you ever wondered what it would feel like to release that weight, even for a moment, to simply inhabit your own mind, fully, without interruption or demand? And in that wondering, you feel a new kind of clarity, a recognition that the quiet moments, the small pauses, the restraint, all of it is not wasted. It is growing something deeper, something lasting, something that cannot be shaken by the voices outside. The realization settles softly in your chest. Not reacting does not mean nothing is happening. Not answering does not mean you are small. You begin to understand that silence is a choice, not a passivity, but of presence. It is an active holding of your own spirit, a conscious decision to protect the stillness that has become your refuge. And in that recognition, you feel a subtle power you may never have named before. It is quiet, yes, but it is not weak. It moves slowly, but it moves firmly. It is yours, entirely, and no one can take it from you. You notice how your breath deepens as this understanding grows, the tightness in your chest, the faint tension in your shoulders, all of it begins to soften. And in the softening, you feel a sense of peace that is not dependent on the world around you. You realize that for so long you measured your own worth by the eyes and opinions of others, and in doing so, allowed your energy to scatter, your calm to fracture. But now, in this quiet space, You see that your value has never been in their seeing, but in your own knowing. It is a delicate and gentle power, one that does not demand attention or recognition. It does not need to prove itself, does not need to be applauded. It is the kind of power that moves like water, quiet and steady, shaping its own path without force. And as you sit with it, as you allow it to fill the spaces between your thoughts, you feel a small but unmistakable shift. The weight of the world no longer presses against you in the same way. The pull, L to react, to defend, to explain, softens until it is almost imperceptible. And you see for the first time how much of your life has been lived in reaction, how much has been spent bending to the currents of others' expectations. And yet there is no regret here, only understanding, only recognition that this moment, this quiet realization is different. It is a small awakening, a turning inward, a gentle claiming of your own space, your own rhythm, your own life. And it feels like the beginning of something you have always been waiting for, though you did not know its name. You may notice that a quiet smile rises, not outwardly, but within, as if your heart itself is acknowledging the shift. There is a softness in your chest, a warmth that spreads slowly, steadily. And with it comes a gentle courage, the kind that does not need to fight, that does not need to rush, that simply exists, fully, entirely, without apology. It is the knowledge that you are enough, as you are in this moment, and that nothing outside can diminish the calm and strength you carry inside. And in that realization you allow yourself to rest, if only for a moment, in the quiet power of your own presence. You notice how your thoughts are less scattered, how your breath is steady, how the world, with all its noise and insistence, feels a little more distant, a little less pressing. And you understand that this power, this inner knowing, is not a fleeting thing. It is not a borrowed strength. It is this, a gentle, enduring truth of who you are, quietly rising in the stillness, unseen, unshaken, unshakable. In the quiet of your own heart, you begin to notice how much growth has taken place without announcement or applause. It is not the kind of growth that is seen by others or measured in outward success. It is slower, softer, and yet no less real. You have learned to hold yourself steady, to carry your own weight with calm and patience. And as you observe it, a gentle pride arises, not loud, not demanding, simply a quiet acknowledgement of what you have become. Have you ever noticed how the smallest acts of restraint can hold the greatest lessons? Each moment you chose not to answer, each pause you allowed between impulse and action, has shaped you in ways no one can witness. And yet, in the silence of your own being, you feel the subtle strength it has built. The heart that once leapt at every word or glance now beats with a steady rhythm. The mind that once scattered at the slightest provocation now holds its center. And the soul that once bent to the judgments of others now rests quietly, unshaken. It is remarkable, this kind of growth, because it asks nothing in return. It does not seek approval, recognition, or validation. It exists quietly, persistently, like water carving a path through stone, slow but certain. You notice the small shifts in your own body and mind, the calm that lingers after a storm of words has passed, the gentle ease in your chest, the quiet confidence, CE that rises without fanfare. And in these moments, you understand that true change often moves in silence, shaping you from within while the world continues as it always has. Sometimes, in the soft hours of reflection, you feel the echoes of old reactions, the instinct to defend, to explain, to prove yourself. And yet, when you notice them, you no longer feel compelled to act. You observe the pull, and then, with gentle patience, you let it pass. The old tension, the small tightness in your chest, fades. You breathe deeply, slowly, and you feel the subtle liberation that comes from holding yourself steady. And in that liberation, you sense the quiet joy of knowing you are no longer controlled by the impulses of the moment or the judgments of others. Have you noticed how much energy is saved when the mind is allowed to rest in restraint? When the heart does not react to every slight, every misunderstanding, every unspoken expectation, you may feel the softness of your own patience, the gentle extension of your own compassion, not for them, not for what they see or do, but for yourself, for the quiet life you are learning to live. And in that soft extension, there is growth, subtle but undeniable, a widening of your inner space that allows more light to enter, more stillness to settle, more clarity to emerge. You begin to see that this growth is a quiet teacher. It shows you the value of observation, the power of restraint, the dignity of holding your own center. You notice how your thoughts move differently now, slower, more deliberate, more measured. You notice how your heart carries a softness that did not exist before, a gentleness toward yourself that had been buried beneath the demands of others. And in noticing, you feel a small, almost imperceptible shift, a recognition that you are no longer at the mercy of the world's noise. There is a remarkable subtlety in this learning. The world may continue to speak loudly, to demand reaction, to misunderstand, to press, to judge. And yet you are changed. You feel it in the way your mind holds its balance, in the way your chest rises and falls with ease, in the way your thoughts can rest without needing to answer every call. The quiet power of this change is not obvious, not dramatic, and yet it is profound. It moves through your being like water-smoothing stone, imperceptible to the eyes but lasting in the core, and so in the soft spaces between the moments, you notice how much has been built without you even realizing it. The inner fortitude, the patience, the quiet dignity, all of it has grown in the silence of your own restraint, and there is a gentle gratitude for this invisible shaping, a recognition that the life of the spirit often grows in ways that the eyes cannot see. It is slow, it is steady, and it is entirely yours. You breathe once more fully and feel the subtle rhythm of your own strength, the quiet movement of growth that has been shaping you all along. And as you sit with you understand that this is the kind of power that endures. Not the power of outward recognition, not the power of reaction, but the soft, persistent, steady power of someone who has learned to move through the world with patience, clarity, and calm. It is gentle, but it is unshakable, and it lives quietly inside you, forever shaping the person you are becoming. You begin to notice, in the quiet of your own mind, the subtle triumph of restraint. It is not loud or visible. There is no applause, no acknowledgement, and yet it carries a weight far deeper than anything you once thought of as victory. It is the kind of triumph that does not announce itself, but settles quietly in the chest, like the soft landing of a bird at the edge of a branch, delicate and unshakable. Have you ever noticed how much of life is spent chasing acknowledgement, seeking approval, trying to prove something to the world? And yet here you are, noticing how much more enduring it is to simply hold your own space, to meet the moments without needing to react, to carry your own weight with calm and clarity. The victories of the spirit often pass unseen, yet they shape you more deeply than any external praise ever could. You feel it in the soft steadiness of your breath, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the quiet confidence that moves slowly through your thoughts. The world may speak, may judge, may try to pull at your calm, and yet it cannot reach this quiet strength you have cultivated. It is yours, and no one can take it. No one can diminish it. No one can see its full measure except you. It is remarkable how small acts of restraint create something larger than themselves. Each time you paused instead of reacting, each moment you held your tongue instead of speaking to defend or explain, each quiet choice to observe rather than respond, it has all accumulated layer upon layer into something enduring. You may have thought these moments were insignificant, invisible even, yet together they have formed a deep, steady current within you. And as you sit with it now, you begin to feel its presence in every part of your being. Sometimes you may recall the old impulse to answer immediately, to rise up in argument or explanation, to try and make yourself understood. And yet when you do, now you feel a strange satisfaction in having resisted. Not because you denied yourself expression, but because in your restraint you discovered something far richer, the ability to remain whole, undisturbed, and present in your own life. You understand that this quiet victory is not a lack of feeling, but the mastery of it. Not a silence of weakness, but a silence of strength. Have you noticed how gentle the world can feel when you no longer react to it in haste? How much space opens within you when the need to defend yourself is released? There is a softness to this triumph, a gentleness that is often mistaken for passivity. Yet it is full of substance. It moves through you slowly, like the tides that shape the shore over countless years, invisible to the eye but leaving a lasting mark on all it touches. And in the quiet, you feel the dignity of your own presence. You notice how the small movements of your mind are steadier, how your thoughts carry less weight, how your heart is freer to feel without fear of disturbance. The restraint you have practiced is no longer a conscious effort. It has become a part of you, a quiet rhythm in your chest, a soft light in your mind, and it teaches you, in its subtle way, that strength does not need to shout. It does not need to be acknowledged. It simply is. You may notice the stillness around you, how it has grown from moments of reflection into something that feels almost like a companion. And in that stillness, you sense the triumph of having chosen presence over reaction, patience over anger, observation over impulse. It is a victory that cannot be measured by others, for it exists only within the spaces you have carved for yourself, within the sanctuary of your own calm. And as you breathe slowly, letting the quiet fill you, you begin to feel the gentle expansion of your inner life. The triumph of restraint is not a fleeting feeling, but a subtle transformation. It is the soft understanding that you are capable of holding your own center, of walking through the world with quiet dignity, of protecting the calm that grows in the spaces between words, between judgments, between expectations. It is a triumph, that does not end, because it is not earned or lost. It simply is. Like the slow and steady movement of the earth beneath the sky, like the gentle turning of seasons, like the quiet unfolding of a flower in the sun. And in its quiet presence you feel the assurance of something enduring, a power that is neither loud nor showy, but profound, steady, and entirely yours. It is the soft, unshakable truth of a heart that has learned the quiet victory of restraint, and now, in the stillness that follows all the quiet choices, all the moments of restraint, all the unseen victories, you feel something settle deeply within you. It is not a sudden revelation, not a rush of light or a burst of feeling, but a gentle, steady presence like a river flowing beneath the surface of the earth. You notice it first in your breath, slow and even, and then in your chest, in the subtle rhythm of a heart that has learned to hold itself. Have you ever felt the quiet strength of simply being yourself fully, without needing the world to approve or understand? It is a soft kind of power, the kind that does not announce itself with noise, that does not demand attention or acknowledgement, yet carries a weight far greater than anything the world can offer. You begin to sense it now, spreading gently through your mind, filling the spaces where uncertainty and doubt once lingered. And in that sensing, there is a kind of calm that feels almost like coming home. You notice the ways in which your life has shifted. The urges to react, to argue, to defend have softened, not because they are gone entirely, but because they no longer control you. You see how much energy was once spent on the outside and how much lighter your spirit feels when it is finally allowed to rest within itself. And in that quiet resting, you understand a subtle truth. The deepest power comes not from changing others, but from knowing yourself. It is remarkable how gentle this knowledge feels. It does not shout, it does not demand, it simply exists, quietly and steadily, like the calm that follows a long storm, and as you sit with it, you notice the depth of peace that arises from living in this truth. There is no need to prove, no need to justify, no need to respond to every call of the world. You can simply be, and that being holds more strength than any outward display ever could. Have you noticed how soft the world feels when you no longer give it the power to disturb you? How much space opens in your chest when you carry your own heart with care and clarity? You feel it now, the gentle expansion of the mind that observes without being pulled, the subtle warmth of the heart that rests in its own knowing. And you realize that the calm you have cultivated is not fragile, but enduring. It does not waver when the wind rises, because it is grounded in something deeper than circumstance, deeper than the judgments of others, deeper than any fleeting emotion. You may feel the echoes of old fears, the small whispers that once urged you to respond, to defend, to explain. And when they rise, you notice them, breathe through them, and let them pass. You no longer need to engage with every echo because you have learned that your inner world belongs to you alone. The power of restraint, the quiet triumphs, the patience that has grown like roots in the dark soil of your spirit, all of it has brought you here, to this calm, to this soft authority that is entirely your own. And as you breathe slowly, fully, you begin to sense the gentle joy of self-respect, of holding your own mind and heart with care. It is not a joy that demands recognition. It does not clamor for praise. It does not need to be witnessed by anyone else. It is simply the soft, steady delight of knowing that you are present in your own life fully and entirely. And that presence carries with it a kind of quiet authority, the certainty that you can meet the world without losing yourself, that you can move through life without being pulled off course, that you can rest within yourself no matter what arises. You notice the subtle rhythm of your own thoughts, how they move more gently now, how they no longer jump or scatter at every stimulus. You notice the warmth in your chest, the slow, steady pulse that reminds you of your own presence, your own life, your own quiet strength. And in that noticing, you feel a profound contentment, a peaceful assurance that comes not from he world, not from recognition, but from knowing your own mind and your own heart. It is a power that does not need to prove itself, that does not need to display itself, that does not need to be named. It simply exists, quietly and steadily, like the night itself holding the stars, like the earth holding the ocean, like the stillness holding you. And in that quiet presence, you feel the gentle certainty of being whole, of being enough, of being fully yourself. And so you breathe once more, slowly, deeply, letting the calm move through every part of you. The world may speak, may judge, may press, may misunderstand, but it cannot touch this quiet power within. It is yours. It has grown, quietly and steadily, through every pause, every restraint, every moment of patient observation. And in that gentle knowing, you rest fully, completely, in the soft, enduring strength of your own presence.